A few weeks back, rumors surfaced concerning the iPhone 16 Pro's ultra-wide sensor jumping to 48 megapixels. Now we have further information on the next-gen iPhones, according to Jeff Poo, that the base iPhones could get a 2 gig boost in RAM, going from 6 to 8. There's also an expectation that they will run on the A18, which would be based on the 3nm fabrication, allowing the 16s to be the first base models in the lineup to use that technology. They could also be compatible with Wi-Fi 6E, but they might retain the X70 modem from Qualcomm, which currently powers all the iPhone 15s as far as connectivity. It would be the Pro, or Pros possibly, that would receive the upgraded X75 that incorporates 5G Advanced, with better speeds, connection, efficiency, performance all around. And they might possibly come with the addition of the brand new Wi-Fi 7. That one's a little more sketchy, so just take that one with a bigger grain of salt. And they, of course, they will probably be powered by the A18 Pro. There are still rumors floating around that we can expect an Ultra variant, but for now, at least for us at Stern's Tech Talk, we're going to hold off on jumping the gun as far as 2024 is concerned, but it seems like it's just still in the works. We just don't know what year it's going to be yet, for sure.
So a couple of things. Number one, that probably might be the farthest we've seen into the future with Apple or any company, to be perfectly honest with you, because we haven't even gotten to the 16 just yet. But and then another thing, a little late to the party with finally getting 8 gigs of RAM. While I would say, well, maybe not most phones nowadays, but a good portion of them already have 8 gigs on them. So a little late there. But as far as all those other rumors, that's great. I'm very glad to hear that. So
yeah, I mean it's coming up here in September, so it's not too far off. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still in that middle way where it's just I'm looking forward to the Ultra. Really, I just want to see.
Me too.
More so because in my mind I have the illusion that it's going to have a different design. I mean, not like radically different,
yes,
but I just feel like it's going to be even more premium, especially with the addition of titanium. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it'll just be rebranded from a Pro Max. I don't know. That's really
I would
still
argue that you really need a refresh every now and again, because having the same seriously, having the same exterior on the same phone for the last few years is just kind of boring, a little annoying.
I mean, I get that. I think the only counterpoint that I would add is obviously they'll have like a 3 to 4 year, design transition from one to the next. And I think the nice part about that is it makes, I know I'm a tech enthusiast, but even I have to live in that, regular world with the rest of you guys, where it makes me feel less of fear of missing out because of a newer design that's arrived every single year or maybe every other year. So that's kind of the good thing about not having a new design. So, and there's only so much you can do with a phone to begin with anyway, so I think we are reaching that, like you've said, where it just kind of looks like it's all melding together, and even the Pixel from last week has proven that. So
yeah, I would agree with you for the most part there, but yeah, that's good. And I am also glad that we might be possibly seeing Wi-Fi 7, so that'll be interesting to see. Yeah. We have a new image leak showing the new iPad Air. Like we mentioned a few weeks ago, Apple is going to be releasing 2 different versions of the Air. The base version, which is I think 10.9 inches, and then the 12.9 inch. So it's going to be a Pro version of the iPad Air, if that makes any sense. Well, here we can see that a little more clearly. There isn't much or many other changes to the design other than it looks like the rear camera layout has changed just a little bit. We can expect this to be released with the Pro models in mid to late June of this year, but we will continue to keep you updated if there are any rumors that hit about this. So, from my personal look, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. I will say I am for, and I don't know if I mentioned it on the episode we talked about this rumor, but I'm actually for there being a larger iPad Air. Yes, it may be a little more expensive, But I have always been a proponent of that larger screen size, and maybe you feel differently, JD. But for me, a larger screen size adds more efficiency. You can get more work done. There's just a lot of things that you can do with a bigger screen. And some people might find a smaller screen better, but for them to have two different options, I think that's pretty good. So.
Yeah, they're just pretty much copying what they have with the iPhones, the base iPhone, iPhone Plus, Pro, and then Pro Max. So yeah, no, I honestly don't mind that. This is, believe me, there's always one of those times where we do agree on something. Yeah, I feel like that's a good move, and it's kind of just their way of offering something that's a little bit cheaper, but gets that bigger screen size without having to get that Pro iPad. Or iPad Pro, if you want to call it the actual name. But yeah, I'm okay with it, and who knows, it might actually offer a little bit more battery life because there's less components in there from the Pro model. So yeah, it's a good move. So I think it's getting a little crazy with all those models, but I don't know. If it works for the consumers, then why argue?
Why argue?
Riley, you might remember this, but not too long ago, I made a complaint about how I felt the Pixel Watch was too dainty or too small, at least from a guy's perspective.
Yeah.
We now have leaks, though, that suggests that Google is going to remedy that with 2 watch size variants. No specifics on what the second size will be, other than we assume that they will stick with the 41 millimeter for the base option. Either way, I just hope that they will address the thicker bezels and hopefully improve the battery life a little bit more as well. So
yeah, I don't have too much to say on that.
No.
it's kind of just like a quick shot there, but
right.
Actually, no, I do have something to say. We mentioned last year how Google might be moving into the whole Apple scenario where there's a lot of different tiers to things, and that may actually be a bad play on many companies' parts because it's so overwhelming. In this case, I am actually okay with this, mainly because 2 different watch variants is not crazy, and it makes sense since it could, like you said, allow for a much more different approach for people, like guys that don't want a small little watch on their wrist. There's that, and then you also had the capability for a bigger battery life and maybe possibly more performance. So, and obviously, making capital more bigger bank off of a larger watch, that's going to happen. Think of the Watch Ultra. That's obvious, but yeah, I think this is one of those scenarios where I think that will work just fine.
I guess my question, actually, you bring up a good point. Do you think it's wise, if they ever did this, do you think it's wise if Google were to pursue an Ultra variant for their own Pixel lineup? Let's just stick with watches.
Yeah, let's please. Yes, I could see that happening. I also think that we're getting to a point where a lot of companies are starting to approach technology in a very same manner. And you could argue one way or another. I think personally it may be better for Pixel kind of to stray away from that just a little bit. Kind of keep themselves unique in that sense. Now, if they do it, that's fine. More power to them, because obviously an Ultra variant would be beneficial. You see Apple having that. Great success there, but at the same time, I just feel like if you want to stand a little bit, try not to flow with the crowd. That's just
Samsung hasn't done it, so it's not like
that's true. They haven't,
or at least yet they haven't done it. But I don't anticipate that they will. I think they're good at where they're at with the classic and the regular model. So I really don't see a need for it. I don't know. I think Apple just needed to have that for battery's sake, and maybe you could argue that other companies would need that as well, but I don't know. In my opinion, I just feel like there's so many features on an Apple Watch that it is degrading when it comes to the battery life, so you need to have that boost, even if it's a larger size piece of metal on your wrist. But
yes, for sure.
Anyway.
Moving right along here, the OnePlus Watch is being launched at Mobile World Congress from February 26th through the 29th. And it will be coming with, you guessed it, Wear OS. along with the fact that this could feature the Snapdragon W5 Gen 1, which we remembered might be a possibility for this watch. We were hoping it was, and it looks like it's going to be.
Yep.
I mean, we were kind of concerned if this was going to have some lackluster features, or if OnePlus has really even learned their lesson from the previous models. But boy, did they really go beyond. And if we learned anything from this event, which we'll get to at the end of this episode, it's that OnePlus is really making a turn, I think, for the better. They're improving on mistakes. They're outdoing themselves, I would argue. Maybe that's a little bit much. But yeah, I'm really happy that they've actually added that Snapdragon chip and Wear OS is being implemented in here. That's two very important key features for a watch. I feel like if you want to have a standard, you got to set the bar there and then move on from there. So
yeah. I'm looking forward to, just because I don't know if we had confirmation on it coming to the States, but even if it doesn't, that just means that if that model does look good, maybe the next model year will actually come to the States.
Yeah, if it's a success in its own country or whatever and does great there, then they have no reason, okay, let's go and release it to the public now. So yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So
one other quick thing here, running it back with Apple, that capture button we talked about a while ago. I know, I feel like a lot of these topics we mentioned are now coming full circle all of a sudden, and it's all in just one episode. But the capture button was rumored to be released on the iPhone 16, and its main function would be for the camera. Well, now it's rumored that there are a few gestures that would be used. One of them is the surface of the button, which is said to be mechanical, can respond to touch and will be able to zoom in and out while taking a picture or video, and pressing the button would capture the photo. I don't know what other thing that would happen if you press the button, because it's a capture button. So, now I do not know if we talked about it or not, but my thought process is the volume button was the capture button for a while now. And I'm wondering if maybe they're adding this to utilize the volume buttons as another gesture for the camera. Like perhaps switch from different overlays or mapping them to change the contrast or something of that nature. Because we talked about this and it felt that it was kind of weird adding this button when, like I said, we already have a capture button, at least for the last how many years. So I don't know what you make of this. Is it good, bad? Not what you were wanting for the button.
I think based on the component name, I feel like it's logical.
I know, right?
Like you were saying.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like it's a big deal. I think your approach to it makes a little bit more sense as to what does that mean for the volume buttons. Mm-hmm. If I were to put it this way, if it was Google or Samsung doing this, I would be very confident in that, the volume button would take some other form of function to photography or videography. But with Apple, I don't know. Maybe they'll just disable it back to volume rockers. It's hard to say. I hope they don't. But that's a good question though, and I'm guessing the rumors don't really reveal anything more than what the capture button is supposed to be doing. So yeah, that'll be cool. Obviously, neither of us own the iPhone 15s, so we don't use the capture button all the time.
I'm very happy that neither of us own that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But in either case, we do have some deals, and we've got the Roomba iRobot Q5 Plus with the self-emptying dock. That is originally $700, and now it's down to $400, so nearly 50%, about 43. So it's a good deal.
Okay, cool. Got a Samsung 65-inch 4K TV. This is not a huge one, but it went from $900 to $700, so that's a $200 discount right there. That's on Best Buy, I believe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the Roomba was on Amazon, by the way, in case you guys were wondering.
But moving right along to our main topics for this episode, we have an update for you all regarding Apple versus Epic, once again. Last time we mentioned that Apple had won most of the accounts except for anti-steering, which would allow Epic and other developers to have a link to third-party payments. We also mentioned that Apple was trying to appeal to the Supreme Court to try and get this last nail in the coffin taken care of. But we now know that the Supreme Court rejected the appeal and basically stated that whatever the previous judge had ruled, that is what they would have to go with. However, it is likely that Apple may actually charge developers a commission share, and it is in their jurisdiction. They have full legality to do that. So even though I think it's completely stupid, and Apple at this point is just being petty, so petty in fact, that they are actually wanting Epic to pay them $73.4 million in legal fees. As a side note here, they calculated all these charges up and it was actually like $82 million, and then they took a small discount for something, I can't remember, so it went down to 81. And then because I guess they were being nice, okay, because because Epic won one of these accounts, they took 10% off of that, so Epic would just have to pay $73.4 million. So for this, on March 5th, 2024, the court will hear Apple's claim regarding these fees and why Epic should pay them. Now, this is one of, if not the most Apple things that Apple could have ever done in the history of Appling its crappy crapple. So, with that said, JD, what do you think?
Hoy, yeah, it's amazing how they nickel and dime every single thing, and yet they're $1 trillion company. That is so
true. Yes, I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
I find that so frustrating.
That's a good point.
It was going to be hilarious because they're going to have to go to court for court fees. But
yes, that's true. Pay more of the lawyers. Yep.
It's dumb. I really don't have anything. Actually, I'm just trying to hold back because I could get really emotional about this one because it does frustrate me.
For sure.
Yeah, I think so. When you said that developer fee, is that talking about how they would still do it if it was somehow redirected outside of the app? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so basically, Epic now is able to allow third-party payments to happen. But what a lot of people have speculated, and I would agree with, and I think what they're going to do, is they're still going to force any of these developers to pay a kind of a portion by the year end or something like that. So that way they don't lose any of their money. Which
yeah, I think I caught this in the news somewhere along the way. I didn't track down the information though, and I probably should have. I believe they did. I think they are trying to take some sort of portion from any purchases that are made through indirect or redirect links outside of the app, and they're still going to charge the developer for them. So I'll probably try and cite that in the next episode just as confirmation. But yeah, wow, I don't know.
It's just so sad because Epic went through all this trouble. They won one of the 10 cases, but are basically losing because Apple's still gonna force them to pay out by the end of the year.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. But yeah, we won't get into that because it's.
No, that's probably why I don't have much to say, because I'm sure I would have more to say that would just be redundant from eons of episodes past. So in either case, late last year we cited Amazon's pursuit to acquire Roomba, and while those actions, which included a $1.4 billion price tag, transitioned forward, regulators once again were at the gate of it all and weren't keen on where the movement would lead. Both the European and U.S. regulators were ready to shut down this acquisition, and Amazon has officially pulled out of the attempt to acquire one of the leading names in automated vacuum cleaners. Bezos' company will have to shell out $94 million in termination fees to Roomba, and I mean, in the end, this is nothing new. We've kind of already, showcased previous situations that this happened before. One of them was Adobe with Figma, and the thing that I kind of am pulling from this is it sort of, whether I'm in favor of it or not, it sort of speaks to what might happen if Apple pursues Peloton. Because I feel like this could be just another precedent of saying, okay, well, if they're going to shut that down, they might shut this down too. Why pursue it and then have to pay termination fees? So... And it probably could happen with other companies as well. So, again, we haven't heard anything confirmations or anything else since we've notated that in a previous episode with Apple and Peloton, but that's just my speculation on it based on what we're seeing here with Amazon and Roomba. So
yeah, that's kind of crazy. I had no idea that they were trying to take on Roomba, and losing out a whole lot of money there too, because it is such a successful company. Roomba is, and at the same time, I would say that it's good that Amazon is not able to acquire it, just because, like we've talked about before, if a company has too much, they have a lot of power in that, and it's never good when that happens. So, but maybe in the future it might happen, but we'll just have to see if that ever changes. So.
Yeah, especially I feel like it's like you were saying, it's good because I feel like the regulators are trying to make sure that these bigger fish, as it were, aren't swallowing too many, and then you have just 4 or 5 monopoly companies, and it's a pain in the butt. So, but
yeah,
in either case,
agreed. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about how CoPilot was now in the App Store. Well, now it is in Office apps and can be used for $30 a month, and we'll get to those price tiers in just a moment here. Now, there is a lot we could get into with all of this. There's a lot of information and stuff, but we'll leave a link down in the description so you guys can check out more specific things, because there's so much. It could literally be an episode in and of itself. But I saw one of the videos in the article, and I assume you did too, JD?
no.
Oh, okay. Well, it was showing someone typing up a prompt telling them to draft this proposal using 2 different Word documents. And it did exceptionally well. I mean, I was pretty amazed seeing this. I'll show the video here on the side. But it was just incredible how the AI was able to integrate these 2 documents in this one form, but make it so clear and concise. And I mean, the possibilities are pretty much endless at this point, because there's so many things you can do by adding Excel sheets, grabbing those, putting in the Word document, grabbing whatever, a PowerPoint, showing that right there. It's crazy what kind of stuff you could do with this. But I'll just hit the price tiers real quick. So for using it for free, you only get the foundational capabilities, the web grounding, and then commercial data protection. If you do CoPilot Pro, which is $20, this is for individuals, by the way, you add additional priority model access, and then CoPilot in Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. Then there's for organizations, and this is the $30. You get additionally CoPilot in Teams, Microsoft Graph Grounding, enterprise-grade data protection, and CoPilot Studio. And in CoPilot Pro, you get CoPilot GPT Builder. So those are just some tiers for you right now. These may obviously change later. Again, this was just released, but that's what we have so far. But yeah, I don't know what you think about this, JD. For me, I'm all for using AI to the benefit of trying to make things a little more easier, because we know how to, I should say people that are doing these jobs, they know how to put all this into a Word document. Making things easier to, get more time is very beneficial for workers and employees and stuff like that, or students or whatever.
I mean, it improves the productivity and everything like that. Yeah,
yes.
That's for sure. I think the concern for a lot of people is just, when do we get to that point where it fully replaces them, or to the point where you only need maybe 3 or 4 employees per department, because they can just run everything through AI. So yeah, there's some pros and cons to that, obviously. And since this is enterprise, it's a bummer that it does cost money, but this is for, businesses and such. So
yeah, for sure.
But that said, KitKat 4.4 was the last version of Android that essentially supported the use of lock screen widgets on Android phones, of course. We now have reports, though, sourced from coding in Android 14 QPR2 Beta 3, that widgets could be making a comeback. The exception to this is that, at least for now, it only seems to be available for tablets, or more so devices that have the use of primary home hub, like the Pixel tab. Now, in the old days of Android, you could add widget shelves on the lock screen and scroll between shelves for various app functionality like texts, emails, calendar, and so on. But at the moment, it looks like the data slash widgets could be offered once available to the public would only be those that don't share sensitive information. As once again, it'll be used for like a home hub. So they're trying to make it more of a general widget type presentation. But if this does reach the public, we'll be sure to let you guys know in future updates. But it's not anything major or obviously anything new, but it'd be interesting to see it make it come back. I think in my mind, it would be nice to have it on the lock screen just because you can swipe. And if you already have like devices that have face unlock, 90% of the time it's already going to be unlocked when you have it. So you can just swipe between and actually see important information. So hard to say. I don't know. Maybe it's redundant. I'm not sure if the lock screen actually has a point, at this level anymore in smartphones. But we'll have to wait and see.
I think they should have definitely put it back on the phone. Mainly because, that's kind of originally where it was, so why not keep it there? It's kind of almost just a little treat for you, but it's the wrong candy. It's the Jolly Ranchers. Come on. I wanted a Hershey's chocolate. I got a Jolly Rancher. Horrible analogy, but that's basically how I feel right now, and I don't even use Android a whole lot. But I actually didn't really know they used to use lock screens. Used to use widgets.
Yes, Apple was not the first one to do this.
Yes. Okay. That's what I figured. Because Apple tends to kind of take like 10 years to do something that Android did way before. Yes. But yeah, even if they just release it on pads and stuff like that, that's fine too. I think it's good to have those kinds of widgets on devices. It has good cost for efficiency and stuff like that. Quick click and you're to something you needed to get to. So hopefully this happens.
Yeah, I think they're probably trying to test it on like, I don't want to say less popular, maybe less common devices to see how it works. Plus the fact that obviously tablets have bigger screens, so you can utilize that real estate for widgets. So I kind of see where they're heading towards. And I do agree with you to a certain degree as far as using it on a phone and getting that back on there. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that much of a loss if they don't. But like you were saying, it would be cool if they did. So
another rumor arises with the Switch 2, stating that it could very well have 12 gigs of RAM and 10 streaming multiprocessors. This would, in turn, allow for much better rendering and overall graphics performance, something we touched on a couple weeks ago. Now, there were a couple of other rumors I think we mentioned in the past, like a much better battery life and 120Hz refresh rate, and the fact that it could start at $400. We also have rumors from Dr. Serkin Toto, a well-known Nintendo expert. He states that the device will be released this year, and that there could be a Pro model as well. Toto also suggests a price hike for games, saying that all could be around $70 per game.
I did see that one, yeah.
Pretty crazy. This would be due to higher performance from the games that are needed in the Switch, and the fact that there would be increased production costs. So, yeah, it seems as time flies, we are starting to see this year as the year of the Switch 2 and a major performance boost and such. So I'm really hoping that it releases this year. And to me, the price tag for the games, I would say it's warranted. Yes, it's annoying, but it's not like Switch games haven't been cheap in the past. Like, you could get Mario Party for like $50 right now, a new game. And it's been like 5 years since the last Switch was released, or no, even more than that. 6 years, I think. 4, 7. I can't.
Wow, Back to the Future was like 4 or 5 years.
I just went Switch every year, but so yeah.
Well, I think they recently came out with the OLED version 1 or 2 years ago.
2021.
So I think the whole the question I had was with the production costs. What does that entail? Is that like the production for the games, or does that mean a different cartridge is coming?
That is possible. Do you know something I don't?
No, I don't know anything
okay.
outside of what you've already said. So I was just
okay.
asking because I wasn't really sure. That it made me wonder, like, okay, I mean, I kind of get production costs because of the, economies and stuff like that. But then I'm also thinking, is there something else that's being played into this whole entire price hike?
Yes, actually, that now that you mentioned it, I think there was some articles suggesting that the cartridges might actually be changing just a little bit. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. I'm not sure what it would look like. Again, you can go back to this a few episodes. I will link it down in the description where I talk about this whole possibility of combining multi-generations of Nintendo products into one thing. That's never gonna happen, but I thought that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I think cartridges might change, and hey, this might be like a flip Nintendo Switch. That was the picture of that on the article I got this from. So
here's the thing that I would say, and this is very critical when you think about it as it plays out. We've just gotten confirmation, and not that this was part of the set list for this episode, but we've just gotten confirmation that Xbox is shutting down their physical digital media.
Yes,
department.
I saw that. I forgot. Oh man.
So the point that leads into this is that if physical media is shutting down, then that means it's not as popular, which means they need to raise the prices. So that's what I'm thinking, especially for new games. Now, if it's old games, then it goes down. And the other thing that plays into that is we also heard rumors that there could just be a digital media only model of the Switch. So whether or not that transitions into a physical media is never coming, or maybe it's just for this 2024 model, and then after that, it's all going to be digital media online. That's hard to say. We don't know for sure. But that's what I'm thinking through and kind of trying to calculate, okay, what is this price hike and why is it happening like that?
Yeah.
And the other factor that I would throw in there is it's annoying in the sense that these aren't like phones. So we don't buy just one phone or one game every year. I mean, there's lots of games that we'll buy. So the fact that it's going from like 50 or 60 to 70, that applies to every game, and then that increases, the cost for what you want to buy. So that's my other take on it. But either way, it's not like you can argue about it, or aside from not buying them at all. But I don't know who wins in that game. But it is what it is. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and just one thing that I thought of too is cross-compatibility, like using, not cross-compatibility, like how you can use an Xbox 360 game on an Xbox One. Are they backwards compatible? Thank you. Are they going to allow you to use the original Switch games on the Switch 2? And if it is digital, is that not going to be there at all? Because a lot of these people have those games, and how are you going to transition them into that next version if they have all physical copies, right? So, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess they could just sell them, but...
Yeah, here's what I would have thought, is it would have been nice if they would have used some sort of serial coding for the games that they purchased, and then have that ported to their Nintendo account, so that way it always stays with them. That way the physical media isn't gone. The problem is that you would still have access to the physical media, so either they somehow disable that, or I don't know how that works. But
yeah, not sure.
Now we're delving down a road that
of high speculation.
Very high. So
yeah.
Anyway, this probably doesn't come as much of a surprise to some, but Fossil has announced that in a statement to The Verge, they will no longer be making smartwatches. From their own models that go back to 2015, the company has deemed that with the evolution of smartwatches, it's time to exit the stage in this market. They will obviously be continuing their endeavors to, produce traditional jewelry like watches and such, as well as supporting some of their latest smartwatches that are still out there. But as far as any new models with smart devices, don't expect those.
Well, I've never heard of Fossil. Are they were they a pretty big company, or?
I wouldn't say they're big. I'm just surprised you haven't heard of them. But yeah, they made Wear OS. I believe they was Wear OS watches, and they were. I feel like they were they did a lot of Michael Kors and Kate Spade models and stuff like that. So I kind of see why they're shutting down, just because it wasn't like they were popular in the mainstream. It was just more for they use like designer names to kind of gain
luxury.
But yeah, Yeah, Fossil.
Yeah.
They definitely make regular traditional watches, so maybe that's the reason why you haven't heard them, because you're not into traditional watches as much. But yeah,
I can't really afford them, so. The big ones. Not I could afford a small like silver watch, but yeah, never heard of them. But I guess you gotta make the calls. It might be
the
difficult.
time has come.
The time.
Hey, you've had worse
Another
puns
quick
than that,
topic
man.
related to the Vision Pro. Upon pre-orders, they immediately sold out. Not because everyone was so enthusiastic about getting one, but rather because there were scalpers out fishing. If you don't know what a scalper is, basically, there are people who usually use bots to buy a lot of the same product and then resell it for a much higher price later.
High price. Yep.
Yep. Now, Apple has always looked for this. For this specific purchase, you had to use not only your Apple ID, but also your Face ID, which makes sense since your Vision Pro would be utilized with your face. For the Apple ID, there are many that are sold on the dark web, and it's possible as well that many of these scalpers made their own. With Face ID, this one's a little more complicated, but basically bots were programmed to send hard-coded data in response. The article does go on to say that while faces would be unrecognizable by the time it got to the actual customer, the customer can simply notify Apple and trade in for a new one. And by the way, those who sculpt the Vision Pro are now reselling on eBay for a markup price of up to $10,000. So a device that was already marked up pretty high at $3,500 was it? I almost forgot.
$3,500.
$3,500 is now marked up $7,000, $6,000, which is crazy. So yeah, it's just a heaping pile of chaos over at Apple HQ right now. But
yeah, I believe I've seen that happen quite a bit. If I'm not mistaken, it happens with GPUs, especially ones from NVIDIA. I think it's often happened with PS5s. So it's really nothing new. I'm a little surprised that it happened with the Vision Pro, just because I didn't think it would be as popular enough for them to worry about it. But
yeah, I know, right?
I guess it makes sense. They'll attack anything, I suppose. But yeah, that's kind of actually funny when you think about it. But
yeah.
Oh well, I guess as long as Marquez got his, who knows?
Yeah, that's true. He did actually. There was a video released today.
Yeah, I saw him. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of feel slightly bad for Apple, and I say slightly, just because they've gone through so much crap these last few months, just with Massimo, and then having to change Vision Pro because
cases,
there
Vision
was
Pro.
all that happening.
Yeah.
It really has never ended for them. Honestly, their problems have finally, caught up to them. So that's nice, kind of.
Yeah, true.
But closing out this, we have OnePlus. And there's a lot to say here, but first a couple of things. Number one, my wife was watching this with me. And normally she doesn't watch events. However, she was interested in the OnePlus 11 last year. She was curious about all those types of things with this other completely different company that she really never heard of. But she watched the whole way through, and I'm telling you right now, she had never wanted a phone so badly. And I also really wanted this too. The second thing is the event I feel this year was a lot more fluid than the past few events. There were a couple awkward moments, but everything, you always felt engaged for the most part, which is something I could never say about OnePlus, hardly at all, with their events. So that was
like
a plus
OnePlus
too.
and Samsung swapped.
Yeah, it is. Actually, yeah. That's weird. But
now they didn't have a crazy guy in there talking about power for 20 minutes, but it did kind of feel like OnePlus did gain some ground when it came to that event. I agree.
Yeah, they absolutely nailed it, I think. So props to them for that. But then the phone. And I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I was kind of a little weary because are they going to, make this okay? Is it going to be worse than last year's? To me, they absolutely blew it out of the water. I mean, it was incredible to see the features. And as soon as that phone came on, the Emerald one, my wife and I were jaw dropped because of how beautiful that thing looked. It was insane. And then the specs, which I'll get here into a moment, were also just like, wow, because the one thing they said was, this will be the best phone of 2024. They basically said that. And I was like, okay, you're going to have to back that up with a lot of major specs if you really want to keep that statement. Because otherwise you're going to be eating that up later once Apple comes out with their 16 and then you have Pixel. But these specs, they weren't lying, at least from a spec perspective. Now, if they actually do what they're supposed to do in terms of how the specs looks, that's a whole other story. But as far as face value with all of these,
yeah,
I'm not sure if I'm right. But I think this might be the best phone of this year. Might be.
On paper, yeah.
On paper, yeah. But before we get to specs, I'll let you kind of say how you felt about the event or these devices or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a quick recap on that event. Yeah, I felt like they did a good job. The emerald green really did look amazing. I've already got it on pre-order, so I can't wait to test it out myself.
Good for you.
The device, it looks pretty impressive for the most part. There have already been a lot of reviews hitting YouTube. I think the one thing that still hinders it, without getting into the specs that Riley's about to touch on, I feel like the camera is still going to be a problem for OnePlus, and it's going to be a question of whether or not it's strong enough to compare to the Pixel or the iPhone, I suppose. But that's the one downside that I saw. But with that said, we'll actually get into the other specifications that I feel like are very impressive. So
speaking of the camera, they upgraded the telephoto to 64 megapixels. And I don't know, I kind of felt like the way the pictures were shown and how they were taken, it looked pretty good to me. So maybe that was just a perspective type thing, but yeah, they upgraded the telephoto, and then you still have a 48 megapixel main and a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and they completely revamped that too. I forget what they utilized to increase the amount of pixels per square inch, but yeah, that was pretty done well. We'll have to see how that actually looks when pictures start coming out. You are obviously getting your normal types of RAM, 12 gigs, and then 256 gigs of storage, 24 gigs of RAM, and then a 1 terabyte version, which I went on the store pre-order. I don't think they have the 1 terabyte out just yet, but I only saw the 256 and the 512. And then they did add the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which I was really hoping they would do. So props for that. Yep. And then a 5400 milliamp hour capacity with the support of a 100-watt charger, which charges your phone to 100% in 18 minutes.
Not for the US, by the way, just to let you know.
Just not for the US,
in case you're listening in.
Yeah, sorry. I should
US will get 80 watts.
US will get 80.
Yep.
Actually, well, actually, I will correct you there. You can order the 100-watt charger.
Oh, okay. Well, it'll come with 80 watt if you order it.
It'll come with 80 watt, but yeah, you can order the 100 watt separately. I think it's like $23 right now if you order as a bundle. But yeah, it comes with 80 watt, which is still that charges it, I think, in 30 minutes to 100%, which is really nice.
I never needed to replace mine for my 11, so I still have the OEM that came with it, and it charges. It's amazing. I love having that charging capability because
I know they're so
I'm
fast.
texting my dad on about football games and stuff like that, and it's down to 11%. I throw it back on the charger, and within 20-30 minutes or so, it's halftime's over, and we're 5 minutes in, and I'm able to get right back in there, and it's nearly at 100%. So I love that.
It's incredible.
And even the battery life is pretty good as well on the 11. So I'm hoping, based on the milliamps, that it's going to be even better with the 12. So
yeah, absolutely. And then one other thing to mention here is, and we mentioned this last month, but hang on, I forgot the name. I didn't put it in here.
The nits or the water talk
water
software?
Water.
Aqua Touch.
Aqua Touch, thank you. We mentioned this last month that it was going to be released, but AquaTouch is now on this phone, which means that when you're out in the rain or out, if your phone drops in the water, you can still use it without it being glitchy or weird or anything like that. And that was one thing that I think even JD can agree as well, that is a gimmick, but an excellent and needed gimmick. Absolutely, for sure.
Yep. We're totally admitting the fact that it's a gimmick, but it's the fact that it's there that I'm appreciative of it, because I feel like they can evolve that. I think at least I've seen some reviews on YouTube about that AquaTouch, and it is a little bit hit or miss depending on what you're doing, but for the most part, it works really well, especially if the water isn't moving at all. There are some tendencies. I don't know how bad it was. I don't think it was even horrible. I just think there were a couple tests that went through that people had like, I think it was mainly when the water was coming like vertically down the screen, and it would like trigger the notification. So, but for the most part, especially if the water is still or something like that, which happens to me, like if I'm washing my hands or something like that, and then I'm reaching over to dry my hands off, and then I accidentally get water on the screen. My 11 is just gone. I can't even use it, so I have to dry it off first.
Exactly. It's annoying.
But in that case, that's where the 12 would come in, and I feel like it does a really good job based on the other reviews that I've seen. So it's really impressive.
It is. And one last thing I will say, and both, like I said, my wife watched this with me, and she was amazed by this: 4,500 nits max brightness. That is wild. That is like really bright. And just for comparison's sake, even the Samsung S24 Ultra can only go to, I think, was it 2,800 nits peak brightness?
2,600 nits.
2,600, and this phone can do like almost double. Like, that is ridiculous. I mean, I'm just very impressed by that, the brightness there. And then we'll just quickly touch on the R. It wasn't, obviously, it's like a sub device, so it's not like super exquisite either. But you're still going to get that 120 hertz refresh rate. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 will be on that one, which obviously would make it a cheaper version. You still get the, you're only going to get the 50 megapixel on the main, 16 on the front, and then 5,500 milliamp hours in the battery, which is 100 more than the actual 12. So and by the way, the two colors I did mention those was Jaded Emerald. Was that the first one?
I don't remember offhand, but yeah,
I can't remember the exact name. Yeah, we'll say that one. Jaded Emerald, and then the other one was it was a blue one, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Was it blue, or are you talking about for the R?
Oh, for the R, yeah, the R had a blue one. There was a black, and then there was a light gray one, I think. All of them looked exquisite, in my opinion. They were just really good. So, but that was the event. In that case, we also have the buds, and by the looks of those. And I haven't listened to anyone review them, so I don't know the audio quality. However, from the looks of them, the way you interact with like the slide volume and everything like that, they seem legit. They seem a lot better. That they've improved them more, and even
for a base model.
Yeah, and even the latency, I actually mathed it out. The latency is 23% faster on these than the AirPods 2 Pro, which is crazy. So it gets from your phone to your headphones much quicker, which is excellent. So, and there's a tweeter and a subwoofer on these. They look really nice. They look more professional. So the only thing I have cause of concern for is the sound. That's like a deal breaker, because it's headphones, so you got to make sure, are they going to sound excellent? So, yeah.
Well, since they're the 3 and not the Pros, and I've owned the Pros, I'm not having my hopes too high. But as far as basic functionality, I feel like they would do decently. And I am glad that they added the touch controls on the side because that is nice to have. The latency, I'm betting, is limited to OnePlus devices, so I wouldn't expect that to be as quick if you have like a Samsung or Google or whatever. So, but yeah, I think they're just trying to add to their ecosystem and continue to build it up, which I feel like they are in that running where they're slowly becoming part of the big three, but I don't know. It's hard to compete with Google, Samsung, and Apple. So
it is. I don't know. I feel like, and maybe you know OnePlus more than I do, so maybe I'm looking at this from a different perspective. But I feel like they're on the right track. Like they seem to be doing very well. Like this year was incredible for them. I wasn't disappointed hardly at all by what I saw. And in terms of the price, the OnePlus still $899. It was a $200 increase. I figured it was probably going to be around there, but that was just insane because I have my 13 Pro here, and I bought it for $1,100, and this has way better specs than that, and it's still $300 less. That's like wow. And then the R is priced at $599 or $499, and I think the other one, if you get it at like 256 gigs, it's like what, $799 I think. So yeah, prices, it's hard to beat that. I can at least argue that it's very hard to beat this with all these specs and stuff. So you might feel differently, but.
Now the clarification on that one, though, is that the $899 is for the 512 and the 16 gigs of RAM. The base
that's
of
what I
12
meant.
gigs of RAM in 256 is $799. Now, here's the interesting thing. The $100 increase is a little bit funky how that works. So the 11 with 16 gigs of RAM in 256 was $799, which is the same price as this. The only thing you're missing out on is what? 4 gigs of RAM. So they dropped it 4 gigs of RAM when increasing the price. I don't really think that's horrible in my opinion. Well, that was a funny thing is I went back to last year's event with the 11, and I actually looked at what the price release was for, and then I looked at the comparison. I'm like, oh, okay, so they dropped it 4 gigs of RAM and raised the price for that base model.
Good catch.
But that means, the good news is that means that even though it went up, you no longer have to worry about messing around with the 128.
Yes,
I don't know if that's
good.
worth arguing, but in my opinion,
I
I feel like that's a decent move. Yeah, so I don't think they really adjusted anything necessarily in a big way. It was more of a minor calculation. As far as those names real quick, though, it was Flowy Emerald and Silky Black.
Silky Black. Okay, I knew it had emerald.
Sounds like something straight out of a cartoon or some sort of Disney movie, but it's Silky Black.
Flowy yeah. There's
yeah.
One other thing I forgot to mention, wireless charging. They brought it back on the main lineup, which is great. It was on the 11, wasn't it?
No. No.
Oh, okay.
To my knowledge, it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, you don't seem too excited about it for some reason.
I don't know. I may sound like really spoiled, but I am just waiting for that Qi 2 to hit Androids.
Man, I guess so.
It's impressive enough. Yes, it's impressive enough that they finally listened to their customers and consumer base to give them wireless charging. So that is great. I can't knock them for that. And I feel like because it is, like we talked about this with Samsung, because it is one of the earlier models in 2024, it's hard to get that certification. It's hard to get it up to spec. So that's expected. So I do see where you're coming from. So that is good to hear that they did give the customers wireless charging. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I really can't complain. The one thing I will say is that on their website, if you want to get it right now, they do have double the storage at the same price. So you get 512 and 16 gigs of RAM for $799, which would be the same price as the 12 256.
Okay.
Probably something you might want to hop on if you're looking to get that, and that doesn't include trade-in either. So
I was going to say trade-in, yeah. I actually checked it out with my phone. I can get well, if I didn't crack it by accident, I could get $400 off, which is nuts. So, I guess we shall do ratings real quick. You go ahead and go first, because normally I do go first, but you go ahead.
Yeah, because normally I'm lower.
You normally are, yeah, actually. I already have mine picked, but
I think if I was comparing it, so we always talk about like, is it worth upgrading to, and 5 would be, it's not really worth upgrading. I would probably go with a 7, I suppose.
Okay. And that for the
they've
R
done a
and
lot
the...
of good.
Oh,
What was? I can't really calculate the R. Here's the actual funny question about this, because they have the R,
Yeah.
they have the 12, and then they have the 11. Where does the R sit in there exactly? Like, it's just it made it sound like they
weird.
advertised it as a specific gaming performance thing. I guess that's what it sounded like when they were running through it. So it was weird. And we've talked about how we felt like they should add maybe another variant possibly, but the way this works, it's kind of funky. So I don't know. It'd be one thing if it had like the 7th gen, I think it's the drop down from the 8th gen 3. So like to kind of be more of like a middle ground sort of model, but then again that would put you in like the Nord series. So I don't know. I can't even say if I would recommend the 12R, just because I would kind of have to look at it in more detail and kind of evaluate it in depth. So I can't exactly rate that one, but I will give a 7 to the 12. Because I do feel like with that brighter screen, bigger battery, the Aqua Touch, yes, it's a gimmick. It's got the latest processor. It is a little bit more expensive, but I feel like they're moving in the right direction, like you said, with wireless charging. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel. So
yeah, I'm actually, as per usual, I am always higher than JD, always, and I am actually going to give this a 9. Like I said, I was thoroughly impressed. There were no issues that I really saw, other than JD did point out a couple of things, so that is fair to point out and to be a cause for concern. But as far as like everything they implemented with keeping the price under $1,000 is something to be in awe of in a sense. I'm not saying this is like the be all end all phones and like it's the best phone ever. But I am saying that for this year, it's gonna be in the competition. I think it's gonna be. Oh yeah,
Mr. Who's the Boss said that it would be in the top 5 for sure, and it's already the beginning of the year. So
yeah, that's right, exactly. And I feel like this one, like we rated the Samsung S24 last week, that one we rated like a 7 or 6, because there just wasn't anything to it. With this one, there were so many facets to it that you could sit down, look at the specs, look at the phone, and be like, that is a great phone. And even my wife actually pointed this out. With Apple, they are normally a status symbol. If you have an iPhone, people see that, and immediately you're kind of like in the popular kids group at the cafeteria table, right? It's just a thing. You see it. Like if I saw you have an iPhone 15 Pro, I'd be like, you should have made a better decision and gotten the 15 or the 14 Pro, but okay. But it is, and she said something interesting. She said that this might actually be this year's status symbol because it's geared toward a lot of varieties of people. In a sense that it's got a lot of different things that I think most people would actually enjoy in a phone, and it's in a much better priced package deal. So, and maybe that might be a little bit of far stretched, but I felt like that was actually really interesting coming from her. I kind of would agree with that in a sense, because this could be a major thing this year. So, yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. I think again, it really hinges on the whole entire camera capabilities. Because
yes,
I would agree with you there.
For me, when I look at an iPhone, yes, I kind of look at it as like a click sort of device, because it means you're in the cool crowd, I guess. Especially if you're like a teenager nowadays.
Oh yeah.
But for me, I look at an iPhone and I look at a Pixel. Yes, I suppose I could technically include Samsung, but I look at a Pixel and I look at an iPhone as reliable camera phones, because I know what I'm getting. I know the output. I know, the product. when it comes to photography and videography, especially with iPhone. And so that's what kind of makes me feel a little bit more at ease, because I know that, the shots I'm going to take of my kids or my family, or maybe just an event or whatever, it's going to be good. So that's the problem I have with this. I have a problem with OnePlus and their models when it comes to photography and taking videos, because I just don't feel quite as confident. If they can improve that, and maybe they have with this, we'll have to see more, results, and maybe some of this is software based. Maybe they can update that, improve that. I think I even noted one person who said that the night photography was actually worse on this one than the 11. So that sounds to me like there could be a software update that can improve that, maybe change some of the specifications on that for the sensors. We'll have to wait and see. But outside of that, yes, I agree. I feel like this really does have a good punch when it comes to what they're giving you, and then as far as the price point too. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But outside of that, that will do it for this week's episode. This is JD and Riley. We will catch you guys in the next one.
Peace out.